supply chain is now enabling sales, partnering sales to drive the growth of the company. That is the most important thing. It's not a back-end function. I think the first and foremost is about your resilience and resourcefulness. That is the first characteristics which is required to do a solid supply chain job, right?
Sunit, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Particular day, particular event, and to Inside Time as well. Sunit, help me understand a little bit. We were talking about engineering. Why I asked this question specifically was about, your journey. How did it all start? Was engineering always in your cards? Did you always think that this is something that I want to do in life, and that's why I'm going to this particular institute? How was that like growing up?
See, in our times, it was basically herd mentality. So I passed out in '95 from BIT Mesra. And that was basically, I come from a town which is a tier 4, tier 5 in Jharkhand. So it was much more of a herd mentality to get into engineering, seeing my seniors and some of the role models that we used to have those times. Currently also will be having, but those times it was much more, right? So that was my driving force to get into engineering.
I too come from a small town in Jharkhand, and I completely agree with you. I filled my form, but I did not go and take the exams because I was scared. But you did, and you cracked BIT Mesra. And, was that a norm back then that once you have done your engineering, the only next step, visible step that you can see is an MBA? Was that the case for you as well, or was it something different?
Yeah, it was there very much. As you got through engineering, definitely the next step was either you go for an MS or you go for an MBA, right? So, and you won't believe, when you talk to your friends and others, it was so clearly put across in your mind what should be the next step. It was well charted. So there's nothing else. Like you go to states or you go to IIMs, SPGs and NITIEs of the world. So I followed that. And somewhere, when I was doing my engineering, I also realized that why exactly in management degree is important in life. And I'll give you a story here. So I happened to meet some group of people and who started interviewing me there. And I still remember, that is 20, 25 years back. He told me that you are going for management. Why? I gave them some vague reason and all. But he told me one thing which I remember. Ki boss, if you're going for management, I think the only difference will be how to make things not incrementally, radically better. I still remember that word because a lot of debate was happening that time that why MBA is required, why should not you go for MS and all. So I think radically better is something which still resonates with me as I am here for the last 20, 25 years in the industry.
The other big challenge for any student or the student's journey or in life is, choosing what stream do they want to do, right? You have had your engineering degree, you have had a considerable work experience as well, if I'm not wrong, right? Yeah. And you got to know the know-hows of the industry, how that moves, correct?
It's very easy actually. See, if you are a fresher, then the things will be different. But if you have worked for 2-3 years and then join your MBA, I think while you work for 2-3 years, you really get to know the various manufacturing, sales and marketing, or whatever streams you have been given into that assignment. Somehow you develop a knack, right? It may not be a full-fledged shape, but you at least 20-30% you get a knack. Okay, my inherent skills lies into operations, or I am good at talking with people. I am good at interacting with people. I look into creating something bigger wherein I can convince my stakeholders, my external customers. So I see that flavor of sales and marketing into that as well. And in engineering college as well, there's some guys who are very clear, okay, boss, I am going to go to SCL marketing. And, and they went there, okay? So I think that clarity comes when you interact with the people, then you get to know your idiosyncrasies, what is your core behaviors, what is your peripheral behaviors, and basis that you take that call.
What was that moment for you when you thought that, supply chain is something that I want to double down on, and I want to create a career out of that?
Okay, so I definitely wanted to get into IMC because I was good at quants, but I could not. I got through NITIE. And how it is related, because I am production engineer, and we had 2 semesters in management in production engineering, and it was very natural for me to get into operations there, right? And secondly, I have done my 2 years of experience in an automobile company as well. So it gelled very well with me that operations is my core area. And that's the reason that I was trying to tell you, how you can get to know when you interact with people, whether sales and marketing is really my forte. May not be. It was not there, right? It might mature at some point of your time, but at that point of a time, and we should take reference of that point of a time, right? And basis that, I decided that, yes, let me get into NITIE. I heard a lot about NITIE in terms of operations and all, so I got into NITIE in 99.
Right. Let's talk about your experiences a bit, Sunit, because you have had a massive experience of over 2 decades. You've worked with some amazing FMCG brands in the past as well. What happens with so much of experience is, no matter what challenges you are put into, you always come across as a winner, right? What has that, experience been for you? What were the companies that you were part of? And how has that experience transpired you to be the person that you are right now?
Yeah, so I was pretty fortunate to work with the best of the brands. So I started my career with Britannia, then moved into Coca Cola, then Nestle, then last 10 years I was in Mondelez, which is Australian Cadbury, and then currently I'm in Shell. So I'll give you the reason why I moved to Shell. When I joined Britannia, it was one of the best known FMCG in 1999. There was a Britannia Khao World Cup Jao. So a lot of hype in terms of, marketing. So, and I could sense that when I joined that company. And I was, really fortunate to get some good exposure of interacting with the top management because I was a part of SAP team. SAP is SAP, which you will be, as you get into industry, you'll get to know that that is one of the common threads which binds the industry, right? So I got to know the seniors very well. And then at a very early stint, I was given the head of the department role. And that is exactly the challenge which I got very early in the career and which really helped me to shape to where I am currently. Because to become a head of the department just after 2 years of your first career post-MBA is a good experience, a lot of challenges, a lot of expectation, big team, big stakeholders, right? And when you have senior stakeholders at that young age, you get to know exactly how the organization moves, what are the kind of thoughts, what are the kind of ambitions are there. Then I moved to Coca Cola, and Coca Cola was a company where in that time they came up with Thanda Matlab Paanch, and a lot of experimentation was being done here. So that is one company which was into more and more of experimentation. So I learned a lot there in terms of execution as well. Execution is very important as you move ahead. Strategy and execution, right? So I think one of the key elements which I wanted to touch upon is that you can have the best of the strategy, but ultimately if you cannot execute it, it will be of no help. So somehow that is one thing which got into my blood that time. And then I moved to Nestle, and a very good company, process-oriented company. A lot of things I learned about the process. And the last 10 years I was with Mondelez, very good experience. I had some international exposures as well in the Southeast Asian markets, and learned a lot in the last 10 years. But right now, I am pretty glad because, as I told you in the starting, I'm in the company where the real change which is going to happen when you talk about the zero net emissions, right? And you can see like what's happening across the world and such bold programs that we are having. So I am really delighted to change my sector from an FMCG to energy sector in Shell. Yeah.
Right. I would like to know a little bit about, because we have somebody like you who have had so much of experience, right? You have seen how supply chain used to work in the past and what it is right now, right? We have seen disruptions like COVID happening. We have seen disruptions like a war happening, right? And a lot of macroeconomics factor also come in when we talk about supply chain. So how does that affect, what is the situation right now in India per se or globally when it comes to supply chain, and how effective and lucrative it is as a career if somebody is looking towards that?
You can see supply chain as a word being used by Biden, by our Prime Minister as well, right? So you can well understand the importance of supply chain by this, number one. Number two, way back, 20 years back, what supply chain was all about and what it is today, you'll have a lot of changes, right? So initial day supply chain, they were the same function of planning, logistics, manufacturing, but in a very haphazard manner. So it was much more about, getting the stocks available at the right stocks at the right time and so on and so forth. There's no digitalization. The warehouses, we used to have godowns. Now, if you walk into any warehouse, you'll have 100,000 square feet or a 400,000 square feet warehouses, just like a massive factory, okay? And how do you operate those kind of warehouses? You cannot just operate without technology into that. You have to have all the technology in place, right? Supply chain in those days were just to, make the stocks available and all. But right now, the change is that supply chain is also sitting into the boardrooms, right? Supply chain is now enabling sales, partnering sales to drive the growth of the company. That is the most important thing. It's not a back-end function. It is a kind of a front-end function which is also taking care of the primary sales as well. So as you learn about this primary and secondary sales is basically what you sell to the distributor from your warehouse, right? What you sell, and secondary is from your distributor. So primary is typically sales responsibility in those days, but nowadays, a lot of companies, the primaries are being managed by supply chain. So that is the tectonic shift which has happened. So in terms of, supply chain. Let me talk to you what has happened from 2010 onwards. It's a very interesting thing. 2000 to 2010, it was just like about planning, logistics, and so on and so forth. 2010 onwards, the massive change which was happening was about the advent of technology, right? So much of investment has happened in terms of your last mile deliveries, right? In terms of the big warehouses that you manage, the digitalization that you are having, right? You are having artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT devices. So all those big things that you have heard, we have implemented, like in Shell as well, in terms of the massive digitalization program that we are having, in terms of your entire value chain, right? From the time you source, produce, and you distribute, right? We are having the entire digitalization process. Today we are having, I can do my stock counting through a drone, or maybe because of safety risk, I cannot just go to that 100-meter up. So there will be a drone which will go there, capture the entire things, and come back and give the results. So that is the power of digitalization, and that is the power of technology. Today, the machines that you are running in the factories, you used to have a preventive maintenance. The guys who are already experienced will be knowing preventive maintenance, right? You will have a schedule and you'll do the maintenance. Today, by virtue of your IoT devices in your machines, you can really go for a predictive maintenance. By virtue of this, you can really control the cost, okay?
You mentioned that the shift that happened from FMCG to a company like Shell, that was very exciting and interesting for you, right? What was the rationale behind this shift? What were you thinking? And, how smooth in terms of transition, career transition, was it for you?
See, it's something about personal to me as well. See, I always try to move into untreaded territories as well, right? Uncharted territories as well, because I typically get bored with the same work day in, day out. So when I was in Mondelez, I'll just give you this example so that I can relate with this. When I was in Mondelez, I was doing the corporate role. I was the head of supply chain of, logistics planning, so on and so forth. Then I said, okay, it's enough. Let me go and do a factory manager's role. Okay, I took that challenge. Totally different role altogether, because when you go into a factory and manage, it's a totally different role from the corporate. Typically, you join factory at the start of your career. But after spending 15, 18 years, you go back to a factory. So the challenges will be very different expectations. So I took that challenge. So that is one element which is in me. I love to take challenges. I challenge the status quo in myself as well. Like, why this, why not that? And that was one of the key drivers for me. I pondered over and thought through that, yes, I want to change from FMCG, and what best sector I can go into. Then definitely this energy sector, right? And such a powerful brand of Shell, and the kind of ambitions that our company is having in terms of, laying the strategy of powering progress to, zero net emissions by 2050. That was one of the key things which has really helped me to decide to get into Shell. And I'm so excited in the last 8 months that I have been here. I'm handling the entire operations of, right from manufacturing to planning to distribution for Shell lubricants. And this last 8 months has given me so much of energy.
Every new place that you go to, right, it comes with its own set of challenges and its own set of problems that you need to face. The position that you are in, where you're heading the Shell lubricants supply chain, right? what sort of daily firefighting that you need to, go through, and how much of that is enjoying, how much of that are you enjoying right now?
Firefighting is the cause because if you don't have the process in place, right, number one. Out here, currently, the firefighting is because of some other reason. If it is there, it's around 20-30%. Because, because of COVID and all, right now also, we don't have all people coming to the factories or to the workplace. We are having a hybrid model. So definitely there are a lot of things which has to be put in place. So that can be one of the reasons why that 20-30% firefighting is there. Typically, firefighting should not be there. If you are having the right process in place, the right compelling environment is there, wherein your vision, strategy, everything is laid in place, I think firefighting is not required. The 4 important things of firefighting not to be there is that the leaders should have a compelling vision, compelling environment and compelling vision for his team, very well-defined KPIs, so that, and the well-defined KPIs with the right amount of resource for him or her to perform. If that is there, I don't think so that firefighting will be there. There will be some 10-20% because we are not living in a utopian world wherein, everything is speak and span. That doesn't happen and never is going to happen also, right?
Super. Sunit, one last question that I have for you. For people who are excited and interested in having a career in supply chain management, especially in the times that we are living in, right? What is your advice? What skills do they develop in themselves so that they are set for the future?
Disruption is a norm. It's not an exception. I don't know how many of you will be knowing demonetization in 2017. Then you have GST. Then you have this Russia-Ukraine war, right? So these are the things which will be there. So and COVID, of course, right? I think the first and foremost is about your resilience and resourcefulness. That is the first characteristics which is required to do a solid supply chain job, right? And as I told you initially, that supply chain is something which is not like a back-end function. It is enabling the business. It's partnering the business for the growth agenda. So I think it's a wonderful career right now. And it's the best time to be in supply chain, if you ask me, because there's so many things to be done in terms of sustainability that we talked today, in terms of digitalization, right? Entire things are getting digitalized. And definitely the energy challenges that we talked about. So I think it's a very good career. Not to say that sales and marketing, finance is not. Everything is good. But I think supply chain in terms of opportunities are much more currently because the world needs good supply chain leaders to navigate through this entire disruption, bringing new advent of technology and how to make things much more robust, something futuristic as well, right? Because if you want to solve today's problem with yesterday's solution, that is not going to work. So you have to constantly reinvent yourself, right? The various channels are there now. The omni-channel is there. Various ways of doing the business. And this is a glorious time, if you ask me. So I was just, thinking. So I was in Malaysia, Singapore, that Southeast Asia in 2015, 2016. And when I came to India, there is a time when the disruption started. So initially I was finding, oh my God, I am here with all the disruption. But in the last 6-7 years, if I find myself, I think the most valuable insights in my life happened into those times.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sunit, for sharing your insights and knowledge in this session.